Vietnam is one of the fastest growing tourist destinations in the world. From the streets of Ho Chi Minh to the old quarter of Hanoi, millions of visitors arrive each year. And just like anywhere with heavy tourism, you'll find plenty of scams and hustles. I'm Cal, I've lived in Southeast Asia for over 11 years, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through the most common scams that you'll encounter here in Vietnam. The most common set of scams that you'll run into in Vietnam are the ones that occur simply walking around, where you'll have a constant stream of people approaching you on foot and rolling up next to you on motorbikes. And most of them follow the exact same pattern. Someone approaches you, starts a conversation, builds rapport, and attempts to turn it into a transaction. And one of the most common is the attraction is closed scam. Here in Ho Chi Minh, this is very common around Independence Palace and the War Museum, but you'll find it near attractions throughout the country. You'll be walking towards the site and somebody casually rides up next to you, often dressed in an official-looking yellow jacket. They'll ask you where you're from, and when you answer, they'll miraculously know somebody who lives in your country. And suddenly they want to help you have a fantastic trip, but they'll remind you that the tourist attraction that you're going to is closed, normally for a national holiday. Of course, it isn't. They'll attempt to ferry you around to scam attractions and shops and then charge you an exorbitant price, all while missing out on the actual attraction. And you'll see variations of this scam everywhere. Around parks, people will approach you with the same opener, often one after another. It's always a hustle. Sometimes they simply request money. Others attempt to hand you books or pamphlets, especially around the War Museum. But of course, they aren't free. But perhaps the single most common hustle here in Ho Chi Minh and throughout much of the country is the shoe shiners. They hover around the sidewalk areas, parks, and central squares, or nearly anywhere that tourists can be found. And they'll walk up, point at your shoes, and quickly start trying to clean them, often whether you agree or not. And afterwards, they'll hit you up with an extremely inflated charge. And then you've got the fake charities. These are people with clipboards, often mentioning children or education. It looks legitimate and sounds like a good cause, but if you give them money, it's going straight into their pockets. Fake monks are another common one, but I think you get the idea. And this can even include Western travelers. In places like Bui Vien, here in Ho Chi Minh, you'll get approached by backpackers with stories of a lost wallet or needing help. But in reality, that's just how they're funding their travels. These are the infamous bagpackers of Asia, and you'll find them in pretty much every major tourist destination, including here in Vietnam. A similar pattern also occurs with mobile food vendors. They offer samples of fruit and snacks, but they aren't actually free. And if you take one, they'll ask you for a high price, often up to $5, for a single piece of small fruit. You'll also find something similar with photos. In places like Hanoi or Hoi An, women in traditional dress will often gesture to you to come and take a photo. But once you take the picture, they'll demand payment. These types of scams are extremely common, but they're very easy to avoid. If somebody approaches you in a tourist area, just keep walking and always assume that nothing is free. The same pattern shows up again in transportation. One of the first scams that most tourists encounter happens as soon as they land. At airports in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh, it's very common for drivers to approach you directly and offer a flat rate ride into the city. Here in Ho Chi Minh, that's normally 300,000 to 400,000 dong for a ride that will typically cost between 70 and 80,000 using Grab. But even if you decide to use Grab, you'll quickly notice another variation of the same scam, because many of these same drivers will walk up to you calling out Grab, Grab, and that might make you think it's an official Grab driver or even the one you ordered. But it's not, and once you're in the car, you'll get stuck in the same negotiation game, paying 300,000 to 400,000 while your Grab driver waits around and You'll probably get charged on your credit card too. When using Grab, always book directly through the app yourself, go to the official pickup area and make sure the license plates match. But there's one more arrival scam that typically happens late at night. You get into the car, and once the journey's underway, the driver tells you that your hotel is closed, and they offer to take you somewhere else, usually a better hotel. Of course, this is a lie, and the hotel pays the driver a commission to bring customers. And the rooms will almost always be overpriced and low quality. But of course, to book Grab and navigate your travels, you'll need access to data. And this is where you'll encounter another very common scam. You'll find plenty of tourist SIM card vendors at all the major airports. But these aren't official stores, they're resellers, and often operate a hidden scam, selling partially used cards, which means that the SIM may stop working far earlier than expected. For example, a vendor may say that a SIM card is valid for 1 week, but it's already been used for 2 days. To avoid the hustles, it's best to arrange an eSIM in advance, and Saeli is a good choice. The setup's straightforward. You choose a data package before your flight, install the eSIM, and it activates automatically once you arrive, so you're connected as soon as you land. You keep your home number active for calls, texts, and two-factor codes, while Saeli handles your data, so you avoid expensive roaming charges. And the regional plan covers multiple countries on one plan, so you're not switching SIM cards every time you cross a border. If you want to try Saeli, there's a link in the description. Use the coupon code BangkokGuide for 15% off. Once you're in the city and settled in, the transportation scams evolve. Some independent taxis will demand flat fares that are much higher than the metered rates, while others may agree to a ride and then claim that the meter is broken. And some will drive lengthy, scenic routes to ensure that you pay a higher fare, while a much smaller number will use rigged fast meters. And this one actually happened to me here in Ho Chi Minh a few years ago around the bar Apocalypse Now. Fortunately, I noticed the meter ticking up very quickly and demanded to get out. The driver complied. And that's because the laws here in Vietnam are actually very strict around taxis using something like rigged meters. They're hoping you don't notice, but if you call it out, they'll just let you out of the vehicle. But generally, it's better to avoid independent taxis altogether. If you need a car, use the Grab ride-hailing app or opt for licensed Vinasun and My Linh taxis. These are strictly regulated and have apps which allow users to order cars, track rides, and file complaints. And that has actually cleaned up the taxi system quite a lot here in Vietnam. But here's where another problem can occur, because some cars will impersonate the Vinasun and My Linh brands, effectively putting very similar logos on their cars. So you need to look very closely before you actually hop in. And regardless of which car you use, never accept any recommendations from drivers. It might sound helpful, but normally they're earning a commission from overpriced shops or restaurants. And this is part of a much broader ecosystem of scams with a giant funnel network. Another common scam occurs with Cyclos. These are the three-wheeled bicycle taxis that are common in tourist areas. They don't use a meter, so the price is entirely based on negotiation. And if you hop on without first establishing a price, they'll demand an exorbitant fare when you arrive. Finally, when it comes to payment, pay close attention to the bills that you hand over. Vietnamese dong are high denomination notes, and many of them look very similar, especially the 10,000 and 100,000 bills. If you hand over a large denomination note, the driver may quickly swap it for a smaller bill and claim that's what you gave him, or hand back a 10,000 dong note instead of 100,000. This one doesn't just apply to taxis. The wrong change scam can occur with street vendors, shops, and especially in nightlife areas. And when it comes to small transactions, it's typically better to carry around a stack of small denomination notes. Just get change at a big convenience store like 7-Eleven or Circle K before you go out, especially if you're heading out for the night. Intercity transportation also comes with risks, and the most common issue arises with bait and switch scams. You book one type of bus that's often advertised as a VIP sleeper, but end up in an older, crowded, dilapidated vehicle. Or you may even find that the route differs significantly, or that you're getting shuttled between different buses. And this commonly occurs when you book travel through independent agencies, as these are simply resellers that aim to make the most profit off of each transaction. Instead, use established platforms like Klook, which allow you to compare operators with thousands of reviews. Some visitors opt to skip taxis and public transportation and go with a scooter rental instead, but this comes with even more risks. Renting a motorbike is easy. You walk into a shop, show your passport, and within minutes, you're on the road, even if you don't actually have a license. But in some cases, when you return it, the shop will point out some subtle damages, usually scratches on the underside. And normally this was simply covered up with a marker when you rented it in the first place. And then you're asked to pay far higher repair costs. Others may rent a bike that has actual damages, and it will break down while you're using it, and then charge for both recovery and repairs. In even rarer cases, a shop may place a tracker on the bike and later steal it back using an extra key, charging you the full cost of replacing it. And there are two very important steps you should take before you rent. First, locate large established businesses with plenty of positive reviews and read them carefully. But in Vietnam, it's very common for some businesses to pay for reviews or offer discounts for positive reviews on platforms like Google. And it means you always need to read with a critical eye. Filter on 1 star and look for broad, detailed patterns. And it applies to any business in the country, from the rental shops to hotels, restaurants, pretty much anything. Back to the bike. Before you actually rent it, take plenty of pictures, do a walk-around video, especially focusing on the underside. And finally, never leave your passport as a deposit. This can be used as leverage if something does go wrong. And frankly, it's illegal based on your own country's laws, as you're never supposed to actually leave your passport anywhere outside your possession. And remember that although you can rent a bike without a license, to drive legally, you actually need a proper international driver's permit with a motorcycle authorization. And you must wear a helmet at all times. If you lack either, your insurance will be void in case of accident, and police can and will issue fines, which are extremely common in busy tourist areas like the Ha Giang Loop. Once you've moved through transportation, the next set of scams shows up when you need to access money. And one of the most common is around the currency exchange booths. In areas like District 1 here in Ho Chi Minh, you'll often see people standing near exchange counters, and they'll quietly offer you a better rate for dollars or euros. But this is always a scam, and you'll either get shortchanged or receive counterfeit bills. ATMs are typically easier, and they will accept the vast majority of foreign debit cards. But exercise a little bit of caution. Some machines may have devices attached that read your card and copy the information, or small cameras that record your PIN number. It's not extremely common, but it does happen. And it's always better to use official bank ATMs in busy areas with plenty of security guards around, while avoiding isolated machines in nightlife areas or side streets. Again, not a huge risk here, but it's better to be safe than sorry. And that's really what this video is all about. But an even bigger risk comes when you pay with a card. Many smaller businesses in Vietnam will still ask you to hand over a card in order to process the payment. And once the card leaves your site, you lose control over the transaction. Some businesses will simply add charges on the spot and hope you don't notice, while others may actually copy your card details if they bring it into the back of the store. Never let your card leave your site, and always double check the bill before finalizing the payment. And normally it's safer to simply use cash at smaller businesses. But while you're out shopping, you'll encounter another potential set of scams. And one of the most common is fake products. And no, I'm not referring to the counterfeits at markets like Ben 10 here in Ho Chi Minh. Just in case you are unaware, all of the Gucci and Louis Vuitton not real. But I think that's a pretty open secret. And instead, you'll encounter shops and restaurants that misrepresent quality. For example, you may want to buy authentic civet coffee, and shops know it's a higher end product that commands a premium price. But they also know that most visitors don't know how to tell the difference between the specialized and simple normal coffee. Another common variation of this occurs with higher value products and especially suits. Hoi An is famous for tailors, and you'll find plenty of promotional workers that hover around An Hoi Bridge. They'll bring you to the shop, choose the materials, and process the payment, with a promise of delivery to your hotel in a set period of time. But when it arrives, the quality isn't what you expected, with cheaper materials and with lower overall standards. It's not the premium product you thought you were buying. And that doesn't mean that the premium products don't exist, but it's typically better to do your own research, check recommendations and reviews, and choose a shop for yourself, because that's part of a two-tiered economy that exists here in Vietnam. There are excellent local legitimate shops, and then there are ones that focus on pulling in tourists, and you want to pick the former, not get sucked into the latter. And finally, whenever you're paying for anything, remember the wrong change and bill swapping scam. That one is omnipresent throughout your entire trip. Once you get a little bit hungry, you'll encounter our next set of scams. And one of the most common things you'll run into is dual pricing. Some restaurants will have one menu in English and the other in Vietnamese. And the prices on the English menu are far higher. And yet the underlying quality or experience may not actually be worth that significant surcharge. And another version of this is when there's no clear pricing at all. Somebody doesn't pay that much attention, they sit down, order food, and assume that the meal will be relatively inexpensive. And then a far higher bill than expected arrives. And to be fair, this is kind of the buyer's mistake, but there can be a much trickier version of this scam. A restaurant may give you one menu, but when the bill arrives, the prices are far higher. And if you question it, they bring out a different menu with those higher prices. And this one can be hard to avoid if you get caught in it, but fortunately, it isn't common. And it typically only occurs at restaurants that are associated with those broader scam funnel operations. Those friendly strangers and taxi drivers that provide you with advice and recommendations. Another very common tactic is simply adding things to the bill. And this happens in busier areas and especially nightlife zones. You order your food, but when the bill arrives, there's a few additional charges. And if you don't check closely, it's very easy to miss. But if you do notice and push back, normally the restaurant will simply remove them. They'll apologize and chalk it up as a mistake. And these are often just servers trying to get a little added tip. Another version of this occurs when a waiter brings additional food to your table that you didn't order. For example, in Bui Vien Walking Street here in Ho Chi Minh, you'll find plenty of small bars that line the street selling a beer for 25,000 to 30,000 dong. But when they bring the drinks, the server will place a small tray of peanuts next to them, and you may eat them thinking they're complimentary. But typically they aren't, and the price can range anywhere from 10,000 dong all the way up to 100,000. And that's where some of these shops make a significant hidden profit. And the solution here is simple. Whenever you order anything or something's brought to your table, verify the prices first. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about nightlife scams. And one of the most common occurs through a simple social interaction. You meet somebody on the street, in a bar, or even through an app. And they ultimately suggest getting a drink or some food at a bar or restaurant. Once you arrive, the servers will bring food or drinks to your table, and you'll probably assume that everything is normal. As you're on a date, you may not want to ask about prices too much, as you will look a little bit cheap, and often the costs are kept ambiguous very deliberately, because when the bill arrives, it's often significantly more expensive than you expected, and you'll face pressure to pay before you leave, often with security present. In the end, it's all a setup. Your date is in on it and receives a commission for bringing victims to the bar or restaurant, and after you pay, they'll quickly disappear. When it comes to dating, there's one clear rule that you should always follow. Choose the location yourself. You'll often encounter a second issue in nightlife areas like Vivienne. Women stand outside bars, massage places, and small shops attempting to pull men in. But the pricing in the places is often very unclear, often including commissions for the women who work there. And by the end of the night, you're paying far more than you would have expected. But there's one far bigger risk associated with nightlife areas. While relatively rare, drink spiking does occur, and this leaves the victim vulnerable to robbery or assault. Now, this is not unique to Vietnam, and as with nightlife environments around the world, never accept open drinks from strangers or leave yours unattended. And nightlife areas come with added risks from pickpockets and thieves, who typically operate in groups, spotting targets, providing distractions, and then creating an interaction. And while your attention is off, somebody takes your phone, wallet, or valuables from a pocket, bag, or off your table. Another very common version of this is drive-by theft. You're walking along the street, often holding your phone, and someone on a motorbike passes by and grabs it. Purses on a single shoulder are also vulnerable, and it's best to keep valuables in deep front pockets, ideally with zippers or in hidden concealed pockets. And if you carry a purse, keep it in front of you. But theft also occurs in far less obvious situations. You may feel tired and stop in at a massage shop after a long day. And normally you'll be given a locker to store your valuables with a key. But once you're distracted by the massage, another staff member uses a copy to open the locker and remove money, or even copy your credit card. Many shops will also have promotional deals listed outside, but once the bill arrives, it's significantly more expensive with added service charges for oils and fragrances. Before starting, always confirm the total price, including any additional costs. Once you start planning activities, you'll encounter another set of scams. And like our earlier sleeper buses, this one typically starts with resellers. You'll see tour desks everywhere, inside hotels, on the street, near parks, and even inside convenience stores. They all offer similar packages: day trips, city tours, excursions, because they're middlemen, and their goal is to maximize profit from your booking. Not only does this lead to higher prices, it can also lead to very misleading sales tactics. The itinerary might look good on paper with multiple stops and experiences, but it doesn't match the actual tour. And this is especially common with Mekong Delta, Halong Bay, and Sapa tours. They're shorter, locations are missing, and time is often reduced. In some cases, you might even spend a significant portion of the day being taken to shops, restaurants, or local experiences that are really just commission stops where the operator earns money for bringing you. And the best way to ensure a positive experience is to book directly with operators through a platform like Klook. Booking accommodations can also come with plenty of risks, and the most common is the bait and switch scam. You book a hotel or apartment online based on the photos, descriptions, and reviews. But when you arrive, the room is very different. Lower quality, smaller, different layout, or in some cases, not even the same property. At that point, finding a last-minute replacement is difficult, and many people simply accept it and move on, which makes this scam very pervasive. Another variation of this is overbooking. A hotel will accept more bookings than they actually have rooms. And when you arrive, they'll tell you there's been an issue and move you to another property. This typically happens in the mid to lower tier market. And the best way to avoid the bait and switch is reading the reviews very closely, both on the booking platforms and Google reviews. Like always, filter on 1 star and look for patterns. Airbnb has similar issues, so only book with superhosts with a large number of recent positive reviews. And never make any payments outside of platforms, as some accommodations will email directly and request that you pay them immediately. Suffice to say, this is a setup for many different possible scams. Before we wrap up, there's one more category worth covering: the pre-departure and arrival process. And one of the most common issues you'll run into immediately is fake visa websites. Nationals from the United States, Canada, Australia, and many other countries require an e-visa to enter Vietnam. The official site charges $25 for a single entry visa or $50 for a multiple entry, and applications are processed within 3 to 5 working days. But many commercial sites mimic the official page, charging far higher fees to essentially forward your application to the Vietnamese authorities. And there's one last thing that's been showing up more frequently: theft during flights themselves. On many routes within Asia, there have been cases of organized groups targeting overhead luggage compartments. They wait until the cabin lights are dimmed and then move through the plane checking bags for valuables. And because everyone is seated and distracted, it can go unnoticed. So if you're carrying anything valuable, it's always better to keep it on you rather than in your bag. We've covered a lot of scams today, but that doesn't mean that Vietnam is unsafe. It just means that, like any major tourist destination, there's an entire ecosystem designed around extracting money from visitors. But once you understand the system, you're no longer an easy target. And if you watched this video, you're well prepared to avoid any problems. And if you're planning a trip to Vietnam, I've got more detailed guides about exactly what to expect when you arrive and key mistakes you need to avoid. And you can find those right here.